Alexander's campaign against the Achaemenid Empire is perhaps one of the most successful campaigns in history. But despite Alexander's qualities as a strategos, or general of the army, it was his father Philip II of Macedon that paved the way to Alexander's successful campaigns. During Philip's reign, from 359 to 336 BC, a series of reforms were enacted to the Macedonian army. At the time, these reforms were disruptive and innovative, turning the Macedonian army into the most effective military force of the ancient world. Philip was a hostage at Thebes for some of his teenage years and was thus exposed to the great Greek generals of the time. Both Iphicrates of Athens and Epaminondas of Thebes are regarded as having been great influences on a young Philip. Both of these are known to have been brilliant strategists. Epaminondas' victories over the Spartans, such as the Battle of Leuctra, and Iphicrates' innovations, such as the light hoplite, influenced Philip so much so that when he returned to Macedon in 364 BC, he started experimenting with equipment and drills on troops given by his predecessor. During his reign, he implemented a series of reforms to the army as a whole. No part of the Macedonian military life was left untouched. Regarding tactics, Philip gradually increased the types of troops in his army, drawing men from all across Macedon and the surrounding lands. This resulted in a well-balanced army with a good selection of skirmishers like peltasts and archers, light and heavy horsemen, greatly increasing the kingdom's tactical possibilities. The use of combined arms was advanced by Philip and later expanded upon and put to great use by Alexander. Adding to this, Philip learned much from Epaminondas on unit deployment and maneuvering, such as at the Battle of Leuctra, for example. The military training was also improved upon. Prior to Philip, the Macedonian army was widely regarded as weak, having been defeated by smaller Greek forces and more recently the Illyrians. Philip started giving regular rousing speeches to the men on regular assemblies. The soldiers would then do combat drills, maneuvering drills, and an unprecedented physical training regime was implemented. However, the most significant reform on this topic is that Philip ended the practice of using conscript farmers who fought part-time and worked on their farms for the remaining of the year. He created instead a professional standing army and opened the ranks of the elite cavalry to non-nobles, effectively raising its numbers to around 10,000 horsemen. It is also of note that now, instead of every soldier having an attendant and access to a cart to carry their equipment, there was only one attendant for every 10 soldiers, and carts were outright banned. Thus, this reduced the baggage train and quite considerably sped up the march. Finally, we arrive at the equipment reforms that resulted in the creation of one of the most famous units and formations of ancient history, the pikemen and the Pike Phalanx. Possibly inspired by Iphicrates' formation of lighter hoplites with longer spears, Philip came up with the ultimate phalanx weapon, the Sarissa. This weapon is a very long spear or lance that would usually measure around 5 meters in length, weighing around 6 kilos. The spearhead could be just above half a meter long, and as a counterweight, it had a large bronze or iron butt spike that could also act as a weapon. Due to its weight, the men had to wield it as a two-handed weapon, and as a result, they weren't able to hold a shield. For this effect, the bronze-plated Telamon shield was developed. Considerably smaller than the aspis or hoplon, one could hang the Telamon from their neck. The phalangist or pikeman would usually have a bronze or iron helmet, greaves, a leather cuirass, certainly with padding, the sarissa, the telamon, and the xiphos sword for close combat. The lighter gear the phalangists had to carry would offset the weight of the pike in battle, allowing the men to still fight with great efficacy. And on the march, the sarissa could be split in half as it had a bronze piece in the middle to unite both halves just before battle. A pike phalanx would usually, though not always, be 16 ranks deep, and the length of the sarissa meant that the first 5 rows would all be fighting at the same time. The men in the back rows would hold their pikes high like a forest, helping to deflect incoming missiles. The pike phalanx was thus unbeatable from the front. However, the large weapon meant it was extremely difficult to properly maneuver quickly amidst the battle, and thus the Macedonian phalanx was very vulnerable from the back and sides and required their flanks to be protected by lighter infantry or cavalry. Adding to this, on harsh terrain it was difficult to maintain formation, and as such the pike phalanx was only suitable for large plains and when supported by other more mobile units. But the Sarissa was not only for the foot soldier, as the Macedonian heavy cavalry also made use of the Sarissa, using it as a fearsome lance. At the Battle of Chaeronea of 338 BC, Philip decisively defeated the Greek army, establishing the Macedonian hegemony over Greece. The Macedonian phalanx under Alexander the Great went on to conquer an empire and defeat all before it. The Sarissa alone did not conquer an empire. It was the combination of training, combined arms operations that enabled the Sarissa to do what it did best: hold the enemies at bay so the cavalry and lighter infantry could attack the flanks and rear of the enemy army. The pike phalanx remained popular for the next couple of centuries, being used by the successor states and even other Greek states, but it would eventually be defeated by a more flexible unit. At the same time, Philip was reforming his army. In Italy, the growing Roman Republic was undergoing its own military reforms. Both nations would later come to blows during the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC in an epic showdown between the Macedonian phalanx and the Roman legionary. If you want to know more on the birth of the Roman legionary, you can check the video on your screen right now, or consider these other two. I hope you enjoyed this one. Stay wonderful. Wolf out.